So today's part two of social media content curation, choosing, evaluating, organising content. So we're going to try and follow on a little bit from part one and stop and answer lots of questions and throw a lot of stuff out there and really to see how we go in terms of the second half of all the bits and pieces that you can choose to use with the kids. So today, hopefully, we'll review things like blogs and wikis and sites and learning management systems, LMS, if you see the term in your studies. So iTunes, you will have a bit of a look at that. We'll have a look at Google Classroom. Kerry will do in week 10, she'll run through Google Classroom with everyone. Edmodo, which you're aware of, podcasts, etc. Hopefully, we'll give you an opportunity to evaluate, ask lots of questions to evaluate how useful they are for your own work, and then and also look at how we might help you to structure your own ecosystem for managing your own content once you've evaluated the purpose of all the different tools. So we're going to try and run through that today without you having to go away and feel that you've got to make a decision. That's not what today's about. Today's really about here's a whole bunch of other stuff that we could probably introduce, and then later we will train those, and with a bit more information behind you, you can go, yep, that's something that I really could use in my classroom. That's something I want to go and be trained in, or no, that's not for me. I've got really no use for that particular tool. And we're only scratching the surface, obviously, because for every tool that we might show you today, there are probably 10 or 20 or maybe 100 more that are very similar to it. So, but we'll talk a little bit about that today. So I came across my friend Albert, very wise man is Albert. I think that what we're going to try and do today is just as he suggests here, and it really is about looking for opportunity. So it's easy to become overwhelmed, it's easy to become confused because there are lots of tools and they all kind of do the same sort of thing. You know, for example, if you were to ask me what would be the best note-taking tool, I could give you three. I don't know which one's the best because they all do the same thing. It just depends on who you are and what you like. So it becomes hard. So my advice always is pick one, just use it. And you'd only change that unless something massively better comes along. Not just a little bit better or maybe twice as good, but maybe 50 times better or maybe 100 times better. That's the time to go and change your tools. So at the moment, it's really pick a tool, use it, happy with it, keep using it. Don't worry that someone seems to be using something else. If it works for you, you keep using it. But you've got to kind of get its purpose in your mind right first before you move on. Otherwise, it becomes a bit of a disaster. So we sort of started, I suppose, with the right-hand side of this diagram. So last week we looked at Twitter and Pinterest and Instagram and Nancy, what else did we look at last week? Digo, etc. And I've had a bit of a play with Digo since. It's pretty cool. Gives you some really awesome little tools to blog and do some amazing little things, and it's something that I'll use. Today we're going to do the left. We'll look at blogs and sites and wikis and podcasts and all those sorts of things just to fill out this whole picture and then to give you a bit of time to go away, have a chat amongst yourselves, and then come back to your KLA meeting in a few weeks and then sit down as a KLA and say, hey, we found these really cool things. We think these things can work. These things we don't want to know about because we're not ready for those sorts of things at the moment. So anything you hear today, it's really a bit of window shopping is really what it is. It's really just get out there, have a look and go, yep, that's good, I knew that, didn't know how to use that. Some of the reasons, some of the purposes for which you could use them, and then other things. Now, Facebook's quite interesting because we won't really talk about Facebook because 99, probably out of 100 bloggers or educators will tell you not to use it, but you get one or two who will tell you it's fine to use, but I'd probably steer clear of that at the moment, particularly with the kids. Not a good thing to be obviously on Facebook with the kids, but certainly the other tools that we'll go through are pretty easy to use. And obviously things like photos, etc. If you've looked in your Google Drive, you'll see now that photos are nicely linked in with your Drive as well. So that's another string to their bow. No doubt they'll bring YouTube in, so you'll get videos probably at some point, etc. So there's some nice little tools that Google obviously putting into their own little architecture. So what I did was I just thought about my own, the stuff that I kind of use, and then tried to build a little dashboardy view of the kind of things that you could use and the reasons that you could use some of these, which we'll go through later. And there are lots of things here, some of which you are now a little bit more familiar with, some of the things that we'll do today, and there are various reasons why I choose to use some of those things. Some things because I'm just really lazy, like Evernote. I don't keep a chronicle. I don't like to write in it and do all those sorts of things. I'd rather get all my stuff out on the board, take a photo, it's in Evernote, and there's my record, and I'll show you later what that kind of looks like. I like to be super lazy because I use automation tools like IFTTT, which will do way down the track to automate things. So anything that I might favourite or post in Twitter, for example, goes straight into Evernote, and I have a record of all the things that I kind of do. Same with YouTube, same with SoundCloud. So all the stuff that I create for the kids goes into my journal in Evernote. It's all tagged, so when I find what I've been doing, it all just appears there. I don't have to write it all down, and it's all very much automated. So that's a thing that we'll do later. We'll show people some advanced skills way down the track where you can sort of curate your own bits and pieces. But in terms of our own creation, Ryan and I have been using SoundCloud. We've been using GarageBand and SoundCloud, but you can create your podcasts in SoundCloud and then publish them straight up to iTunes, which is kind of handy because you can create your own little iTunes channel and the kids can subscribe to that channel. And that's something that we'll do later. The beauty of doing those sorts of things is the kids subscribe to the channel. You don't have to post it in Edmodo and tell them that it's ready to go. They just go straight to the nice little iTunes channel and grab it, which is kind of cool. We've all got a YouTube channel, so we should all be posting our videos and things for the kids up there. Obviously Google and the whole suite of things, Photos, iMovie and GarageBand are the sort of the content creation tools that I have. In terms of the management, we'll introduce you to some of these things today. Wikispaces, if you've not used a wiki before, we'll talk about that. Blogger, you all have a Blogger account, as do all the students. They've all got that. We're probably familiar with Edmodo, and we'll talk about that. And maybe later we'll compare that to Classroom, week 10. Might be a good point of comparison between what we can do in Edmodo and what we can do in Google Classroom. Sites, I think we're familiar with sites, but we'll talk a little about that. And probably one that we're not, and Ryan and I haven't started along this path, but we will, is iTunes U. And we'll show you how to structure a course up in iTunes U. And that's quite a nice way to, say, for your senior kids, to get your course material up there for them, and they can subscribe to that course, and every kid that comes through can subscribe to that particular course. Nice and easy, works well with the iPads and those sorts of things, but that's a bit of a longer term project. But we have an account, we have a college account. We can get you all onto that college account if it's something that you'd like to do. And like Classroom and Edmodo, it has ways of managing students as well, in terms of how we watch things and ticking them off and all those good learning management kind of systems. It's very user-friendly, allows kids to take notes as they're watching videos, etc, etc. For those of you who haven't used Turnitin for assessment, it just makes your life so much easier in terms of checking originality and all those good things.
Excuse me, Frank, just on Turnitin, is there a school account?
Yes, yeah, everyone's got all that information.
Is it on sites?
Yes, and they've all been emailed. So all you need to do is come, I think, on, when am I talking to Sue and her team? On Wednesday afternoon, if you want to do a quick rundown on training. Sorry. If you want to do a quick rundown on training, Wednesday afternoon, I'll do that with everyone who's interested in that. And a few teachers have already taken that opportunity. They've set it up on their own. They've just run with it. It works for them.
I just want the,
very straightforward.
I just want the code.
Yeah, it's your email and it's your username. So whatever it is, so Kayodonga at Para, Kayodonga is your password. You can go and change that later, or keep it the same, and that way you can share it with others. But we'll do a little bit of a rundown there with Turnitin. In terms of your own curation, however you do your own curation is up to you, really. Last week we did Pinterest, Nancy, so Creating boards, nice visual. You did Digo. Digo works really, really well, and it's got some really cool tools, although it can be a little bit annoying at times to pop up things, but it works pretty well. For those of you who haven't seen Pocket before, which is this little guy, you can send all your reading to Pocket and aggregate all your reading. It works brilliantly. So if you find an article and you think, oh, that's really cool, I should save it somewhere, save it to Pocket and tag it, and then you can see all the reading that you've got for yourself and you can keep that. If you pay for the premium service, it will always keep a copy of that for you. So if someone pulls down that article and you go, oh, that was such a good article, Premium Pocket will keep a copy of that in your reading forever. So it's a nice, simple way of saying these are really good readings that I found on the internet. I really want to keep them together for later. And because we've done some work with our kids in Blogger, I use a service called Feedly, which allows me to take all my blogs and put them into the one reader so I can see what people are writing and I can click on all those sorts of things. And we'll show you that a little bit later as well as a way of keeping that together. And finally, there is the published content. So when we push stuff out, we've got to push it out somewhere and it's got to go somewhere. So at the moment, the tool of choice for us, I suppose, is Google Sites. We're doing a fair bit of work with that in PE. Most people, I think, now are starting to do some work in Google Sites. I've done a bit of work in Tumblr, the senior kids, works quite well. It's got a nice little Chrome extension which allows you to blog things out to them very, very quickly. Works quite well. Google Groups, which we'll talk about. It's a nice way of keeping in contact with the kids. And you know about Google+, you know about Twitter. And by the end of today, we'll talk a little about Blogger, because Blogger's a really useful little tool as well. So that's me. And that works for me. It doesn't work for everyone. So there's no point in looking at this and go, I've got to use every single one of those tools. You don't. Are they the best tools? I really don't know. Are there others that do the same thing? Sure. I can use my Google Reader and Blogger, for example, and aggregate all my reading in that if I really wanted to. But I just find Feedly works quite well because I can see what I need to read and whatnot. So you don't have to use every single one of these things. You just don't. So for example, I wouldn't use iTunes U in a junior class. I'd use it in a senior class. And we're going to use it with our with our PDHPE course, not CAFs. And that's just a choice that we've made for various reasons. We've not really flipped our CAFs classroom, but we have our PE classroom. So it kind of makes sense to put our stuff somewhere the kids can take the course, and it makes a lot of sense to do those sorts of things. And there'll be other tools that you'll come across that do a much better job than all these sorts of things. And I can add in things like notes and all those other applications that I use from time to time, but that's kind of how I try to manage all my bits and pieces. And even on the weekend, I found probably 3 or 4 really good assessment tools that I could probably add to there, but I've not used yet. So, and I don't have a reason for using them. They look really good, and I'm not going to use them just because they're there. I only use them because there's a particular need for them. So, for example, there's some really cool little tools that allow you to mark multiple choice tests on your phone. Or well, you don't mark them, you just take a photo and it marks it for you and gives you the information and sends back to the kids the number of multiple choice questions they get right or wrong. It gives you an analysis of their right and wrong answers and sends them the right answers. It's really cool. The best that we would do is maybe 20 multiple choice questions. It's just not worth my while. But for some people who might use 50 multiple choice questions, it'd be a really cool thing to use and to set up. So you only choose the tools to use in certain scenarios when it kind of suits its purpose. That's the point of today. So you look at those and go, oh, got to use them all. No, you don't. You don't have to use them all. You just choose what you think is going to be worthwhile for you. So the tools that you might be a little bit more familiar with, that you can go away and have a little bit of a think about and say, all right, what's going to work for us? Well, in our videos, you know, you've got your YouTube, and we've done a little bit of work with YouTube. And obviously, thank you, Nancy. She's gone in, put in ClickView, because I forgot about ClickView. Thank you.